Marines on Navy ships. Today it's mainly a case of the Navy transporting the Marines to where they need to be, and cutting them loose so they can do their thing. But not that long ago, pretty much every major warship had a detachment of Marines on board permanently. Whether it was the US Marine Corps or the British Royal Marines, they provided security, they manned guns. This goes back to the Age of Sail, with Marines serving on frigates and ships of the line. In the 18th and 19th centuries, even smaller ships would often have Marines stationed on board. For the Royal Navy, a good rule of thumb is that the number of guns on a ship generally corresponds to the number of Marines. So a first-rate ship like HMS Victory had well over 100 Marines. Now, the role played by Marines on these vessels can be broken down into three parts. Number one, probably the Marines' most important job was maintaining security and discipline. You gotta remember that on a warship in the Age of Sail, a lot of the sailors don't necessarily want to be there. Some of them may have been press-ganged against their will, which is another thing Marines could help with. Although it's wrong to assume that most sailors were press-ganged. You want to hear more about naval recruitment in the Age of Sail? Well, drop a follow. Regardless, there was still a very significant fear of mutiny. So a key role of the Marines was to protect the officers in case of mutiny, and just to maintain security and discipline in general. There's sentries standing guard outside the captain's cabin, the powder magazine, and other sensitive parts of the ship. Number two, landing parties. When ships would find themselves operating alone very far from home with zero support basically, it could be very useful to have a small group of well-trained soldiers to help influence any local authorities or tribes or whatever. You know, a little show of force to just nudge them into doing what you want them to do. So gunboat diplomacy, basically. And of course, the Marines could carry out raids on enemy outposts. Think more low-level skirmishing, not so much large pitched battles. Although Marines could also be formed into larger units for extended service on land. Several ships' detachments might be combined to form a battalion for a specific campaign. These landing parties might consist mainly of sailors, but based around a core of reliable, disciplined Marines, who could fight in a kind of miniature line formation if needed to provide a base of firepower. Which leads on to number three, ship-to-ship combat. During naval battles, Marines served as sharpshooters on deck and up in the rigging. Although it's important to note this didn't add a huge amount of firepower in the context of ships firing actual artillery at each other. It was still an important role, you know, providing some precision, going for high-value targets.